Hello, everyone, and welcome to this exciting episode of Speak Smart English with me, your host, Natasha. Today, we're diving deep into something that many of my students, and maybe you too, often get stuck on: grammar. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to list boring grammar rules or give you a test. This is not that kind of podcast. Instead, we're going to have a friendly, fun, and hopefully eye-opening conversation about why grammar isn't everything, but still matters. But in this first segment, I really want to focus on one particular mindset that I see all the time: the obsession with speaking perfect English. You know the one I'm talking about, right? That feeling that if your sentence isn't grammatically flawless, you shouldn't speak at all. Let me begin by asking you a question. Have you ever stayed silent in a conversation? Not because you didn't have something to say, but because you weren't sure if your grammar was correct? Maybe you knew the vocabulary, you had the idea in your head, but one tiny doubt about whether to use the past perfect or just the past made you hesitate, and by the time you figured it out, the moment had passed. Has that ever happened to you? If so, don't worry, you're not alone. That experience is incredibly common among English learners, and it's one of the biggest barriers to real fluency. Let me share a quick story from one of my classes. I had a student named Rina. She was from Japan, very smart, very hardworking. She read grammar books every day and could explain conditionals better than some native speakers. But when it came to speaking in real life, she froze. In group discussions, she would sit silently, worrying about whether she should say "I have seen" or "I saw." And when she finally built up the courage to speak, she'd start with, "Sorry, my English is bad," even though what she said was totally understandable. I remember telling her one day, "Rina, you don't need perfect grammar to communicate. People just need to understand your message. The rest can come with time." Her eyes lit up like someone had finally lifted a weight off her shoulders. Now, don't misunderstand me. Grammar does help, and we'll talk about that later. But in this segment, I want to shine a light on how grammar, when treated as the only goal, can actually become a wall. It can become a prison, locking you in silence and self-doubt. And when that happens, grammar isn't helping you, it's hurting you. Let's look at how language works in real life. Language is first and foremost about connection. It's about expressing thoughts, ideas, feelings, and needs. Imagine two friends, let's call them Carlos and Emily, sitting in a park. Carlos says, "Yesterday I go to beach." Very fun. Now, grammatically, that sentence isn't correct. He should have said, "Yesterday I went to the beach. It was very fun." But guess what? Emily still understands him. She knows he went to the beach yesterday and had a good time. Did she stop him and say, "Excuse me, you used the wrong verb tense"? Of course not, because the message was clear. Communication happened, mission accomplished. Here's something powerful to think about. Language is successful when it is understood, not when it is perfect. Think about young children learning their first language. They don't speak in perfect sentences. They make all kinds of mistakes. A child might say, "Me want cookie." And what happens? The parent gives them a cookie because the message is clear, even if the grammar isn't. Over time, the child's grammar improves, but only because they use the language. They make mistakes, get feedback, and learn in context, not because they sat down and memorized a grammar chart. Another thing to consider is that native speakers themselves often break grammar rules all the time, especially in spoken English. Have you ever heard someone say, "Ain't nobody got time for that"? That sentence is technically wrong. Double negatives, incorrect verb usage. A grammar teacher might faint. But it's catchy, it's funny, and everyone knows what it means. Or how about the phrase, "I'm gonna go grab some coffee"? Again, gonna is not standard grammar. It should be going to, but in real life, that's how people talk English. Like all languages, evolves in real usage. So if even native speakers aren't perfect, Why should you expect yourself to be? Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but Natasha, I want to sound professional. I don't want to make a bad impression, and I totally get that. There are situations where grammar matters more, like writing an email for a job application, giving a formal presentation, or taking a language exam. In those cases, yes, accuracy is important, but guess what? Even then, you don't need to be perfect, just clear. And you can always learn and polish your grammar over time. What you should never do is let the fear of making a mistake stop you from participating. Let's break down what I call the grammar trap. It has three main parts. Fear of mistakes. You believe that grammar mistakes are embarrassing, so you avoid speaking or writing altogether. Perfection paralysis. You get stuck thinking, rethinking, and overthinking your sentences before you speak. By the time you're ready, the conversation has moved on. Grammar overload. You spend more time memorizing grammar rules than actually practicing real conversations, which means you never build fluency. Does any of that sound familiar? If it does, you're probably stuck in the grammar trap, but the good news is you can break out of it. The first step is changing your mindset. Instead of aiming for perfect grammar, aim for effective communication. Ask yourself, can the other person understand me? If the answer is yes, then you're already succeeding. Let's take another example. Imagine a tourist in Paris. He doesn't speak much French, but he wants to order coffee. He walks into a cafe and says, "Bonjour. Coffee, please. No milk, thank you." Not perfect French, in fact. That's mostly English, but the waiter brings him a black coffee. That's a win. He didn't say, "Je voudrais un café noir, s'il vous plaît," but he got what he needed. He communicated, and that is the whole point of language. Now let's flip the situation. Suppose that same tourist had spent months learning French grammar, but had never practiced speaking. He walks into the cafe, nervous. He thinks, should I use voudrais or veau? Is it do lo or de lait? Should I say in café or le café? He overthinks and, in the end, says nothing. He leaves without coffee. Now, which situation is better? You see, fluency doesn't mean you speak perfectly. It means you speak smoothly and with confidence. And confidence grows from practice, not perfection. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to pause. It's okay to use simpler grammar at first. What matters is that you speak. Every time you speak, you get a little better. And every time you get a little better, you feel a little braver. Sometimes I ask my students to do a challenge. I say, this week, speak English with 3 people. Don't worry about grammar. Just focus on being understood. And guess what? They come back the next week smiling, saying things like, I talked to a tourist at the train station, or I helped someone in the supermarket. That's the kind of learning that sticks. That's what makes you grow. Let's also talk about self-talk. That's right, the way you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. Many learners say things like, "Boo, I'm so bad at English," or "Why can't I speak like a native?" But would you talk to your best friend that way? Imagine if your friend made a grammar mistake and you said, "You're terrible at English." You wouldn't do that, so don't do it to yourself. Instead, say, "Hey, I made a mistake, but that's how I learn," or "Next time, I'll do better." Be kind to yourself. You're learning something amazing, a whole new language. So what can we do instead of obsessing over perfect grammar? Start by using the language every day. Speak, write, read, and listen. Notice the patterns. Learn grammar in context from real conversations, TV shows, songs, or podcasts like this one. Keep a small notebook of useful phrases. Practice with a friend. Record your voice. Focus on real-life usage, not just textbook rules. And one last tip before we wrap up this segment. Make peace with mistakes. Laugh at them. Learn from them. Even native speakers mess up sometimes. They say, He don't know or me and him went there. Language is a tool, not a test. Use it to connect, to explore, to express who you are. In our next segment, we'll dive into the benefits of grammar, when it does matter, how it helps you, and how to learn it without fear. But for now, remember this, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be brave. So go out there, speak boldly, and let your English grow one conversation at a time. We took a friendly deep dive into the idea that you don't need perfect grammar to speak English. We talked about how obsession with correctness can actually hold you back, and we laughed a bit at how even native speakers make hilarious grammar mistakes. But now let's turn the spotlight and talk about the other side of the coin, because yes, while grammar isn't everything, it absolutely still matters. In this segment, I want to guide you through the ways grammar actually helps you in your English journey, not as a scary enemy, but as a supportive friend who shows up when you need clarity, order, and confidence. So let's begin by redefining grammar in a more human and less robotic way. Grammar isn't a list of rules created just to confuse learners. It's actually the invisible framework that gives structure to your sentences. Think of grammar like the skeleton in your body. You can't see it, but without it, everything would fall apart. Grammar holds your language together so that your words make sense in the right order. Without it, conversations can become confusing, unclear, or even completely misunderstood. Let me give you a real-life example. Imagine someone says, "You dog bite I yesterday." Now, you can probably guess what they mean, but you have to think hard to understand. Was the speaker bitten by a dog yesterday? Whose dog? Is it a question or a statement? The lack of grammar forces the listener to guess. Now let's clean it up with grammar. Your dog bit me yesterday. Boom, instant clarity. We know what happened, when it happened, and who did what to whom. That's the power of grammar. It clears the fog and brings your ideas into focus. Grammar also helps when you're trying to communicate subtle ideas, things like emotions, opinions, conditions, hypotheticals, and cause and effect. Think about these two sentences. If I study, I pass. If I had studied, I would have passed. They sound similar but mean totally different things. The first one is about a general truth, maybe a pattern. The second one expresses regret, a past action that didn't happen. Without the right grammar, those feelings get lost, and your listener might misinterpret what you're trying to say. Grammar doesn't just organize words, it adds meaning to them. It's like giving your ideas color and emotion. And then there's the social side of grammar. Yes, it's real. In many professional or academic settings, grammar plays a big role in how people judge your communication skills. It's not always fair, but it happens. If you're writing an email to a boss, a client, or a professor, using proper grammar shows that you care about clarity and professionalism. Think of it like dressing well for an interview. It shows respect you wouldn't wear pajamas to. A job interview, right? So in those formal situations, grammar is your outfit. It presents you well. And yes, even in casual situations, better grammar can help you sound more articulate, more trustworthy, and more confident. Now let's talk about confidence, because believe it or not, grammar helps build it. Many learners think grammar is what destroys their confidence, but actually, the opposite is true when it's learned gradually and applied naturally. When you understand the grammar behind what you're saying, you start to trust yourself more. You stop second-guessing every sentence. You speak with more ease. You write with more flow. You don't panic over verb tenses because you know how they work. You've internalized them. That sense of control over your language is empowering. And guess what? Grammar also helps you understand others better. When someone speaks fast or uses a complicated structure, your grammar knowledge acts like a decoder. You hear the sentence, and your brain automatically breaks it into parts. You think, okay, that's the past perfect. They're talking about something that happened before another past event. Or that's a conditional. They're imagining a situation. not describing a real one. This kind of internal grammar awareness doesn't just help you speak. It makes you a better listener and reader. To that, another benefit of grammar is how it helps you with writing. In fact, writing is where grammar truly shines. When you're speaking, people can rely on body language, tone, and facial expressions to understand you, but in writing, you don't have those tools. Your words have to do all the work. That's why grammar in writing is especially important. It keeps your meaning clear and avoids confusion. Whether you're texting a friend, sending a work email, posting on social media, or writing an essay, grammar helps you express your ideas clearly and persuasively. Let's not forget about reading comprehension. The more grammar you know, the easier it becomes to read complex texts. Have you ever read a sentence and felt lost halfway through? Something like, having been told that the report was due by Friday, he rushed to complete it before the meeting. Without understanding participles, passive voice, and perfect tenses, that sentence feels like a jungle. But with grammar knowledge, you recognize the pieces and can move through it with ease. So grammar doesn't just help you write better, it makes you a better reader. Now, I want to make something clear here. I'm not saying you need to become a grammar expert overnight. I'm not saying you need to memorize every tense or diagram every sentence. But what I'm saying is that when grammar is learned gradually, in context, and with purpose, it becomes a powerful ally in your language journey. It's not about learning grammar before you speak. It's about learning grammar as you use the language. That brings us to a very important point. How you learn grammar matters. A lot of traditional grammar instruction is dry, mechanical, and disconnected from real life. You get a chart of tenses and fill-in-the-blank worksheets, but then when someone says, "Hey, what did you do last weekend?" you freeze. Why? Because you learned the rule but not how to apply it in conversation. That's the gap we need to close. The best way to learn grammar is in real context, by seeing it, hearing it, using it, and getting feedback. For example, instead of memorizing the rule for the present perfect tense, try this. Write about your life using I have. Sentences like I have visited Thailand or I have never eaten sushi talk about your experiences. That way, the grammar is attached to something personal, something meaningful. It becomes a part of your story, not just a rule on a page. The same goes for watching TV shows or listening to podcasts like this one. Pay attention to how people actually speak. Notice patterns. Ask yourself questions like, why did they say had been working instead of just worked? You don't need to analyze every sentence. Like a scientist, just start noticing the rhythm of real English. Over time, your brain absorbs these patterns, and grammar starts to feel natural. Another helpful method is to learn grammar in chunks, not as single words, but as complete expressions. For example, instead of learning the word suggest, learn the phrase I suggest that you, or may I suggest. These chunks come with built-in grammar, and they're much easier to remember and use. You can practice them in conversation right away. Now, let's talk about feedback. One of the most effective ways to improve your grammar is to get gentle correction when you make a mistake. But here's the key, it has to be kind and helpful, not critical or embarrassing. Find a language partner, a tutor, or a friend who can say, "Oh, just a small thing, it's went, not go in the past." That small correction, repeated in a friendly context, helps the grammar stick without making you feel bad. And the more you welcome this kind of feedback, the faster you'll grow. And here's a fun fact. Research has shown that making grammar mistakes and then correcting them is one of the most effective ways to learn. So don't be afraid of mistakes. They are your greatest teacher. Every time you say something wrong and someone gently helps you fix it, your brain rewires itself. You learn not just the rule, but how to use it in a real sentence, in a real situation. That's the kind of learning that lasts. Let me also say something to those of you who feel you've been learning grammar for years but still struggle to use it. First, you are not alone. Many learners feel that way. What usually happens is that grammar is studied too much in theory and not enough in practice. So here's my advice. Stop trying to be a grammar genius. Instead, be a grammar user. Use what? You know, speak with what you have. Make mistakes. Ask questions, read, listen, write, and let the grammar grow naturally from your daily use of English. Finally, I want to leave you with this. Grammar is not your enemy. It's your guide. It's not a wall. It's a map. It doesn't exist to limit you. It exists to help you find your way, to express yourself better, and to connect more clearly with the people around you. Don't fear grammar. Respect it. Use it. Play with it. Let it be your partner in your journey to fluency. Today, we're diving into a big question that nearly every English learner asks at some point in their journey. What should I focus on first? Fluency or accuracy? This question doesn't have a one-size-fits-all answer, but by the end of this segment, you'll have the tools and mindset to figure out what works best for you. We'll explore how fluency and accuracy interact, where each one fits into your learning process, and how you can build both in a healthy, practical, and fun way. And of course, I'll sprinkle in stories, metaphors, and real-life examples too. Make it all come alive. Let's begin by defining our two main characters. First up, fluency. Fluency is the ability to speak smoothly, confidently, and without too much hesitation. It means your words come out naturally and your ideas flow. You might not always use the right grammar, but you can keep a conversation going. Think of fluency like a river. It keeps moving, even if it's not perfectly straight. Then we have accuracy. This is about correctness. Using the right grammar, the correct words, proper pronunciation. Accuracy is like painting inside the lines, making sure everything is in the right place. Now, let's imagine two learners, Layla and Sam. Layla is fluent. She can speak without fear. Her grammar isn't perfect, but she communicates clearly. She makes people laugh, shares stories, and connects easily. On the other hand, Sam is accurate. He knows grammar rules inside out. His writing is strong. But when it comes to speaking, he hesitates, stops mid-sentence, and searches for the right verb tense. He's so focused on being correct that he often stays quiet. Neither learner is wrong, but they are stuck at different ends of the spectrum. This brings us to a key question. What's more important? And what should you build first? The answer depends on your goal, your context, and your personality. But for most people, especially beginners and intermediate learners, fluency should come first. Why? Because fluency is about communication. It's about connection. It's about using the language in real life. And let's be honest, if you know all the rules but never speak, you won't get very far. Fluency gives you confidence, and confidence motivates you to keep learning. Think of it this way. When babies learn their first language, do they start by learning grammar rules? Of course not. They listen, they mimic, they speak in broken phrases. They get corrected, and slowly they improve. Language acquisition, whether your first or fifth language, always starts with use, not theory. So the same applies to you. You need to speak to improve, not wait until you're perfect. Now let's tackle a common fear. But Natasha, if I focus on fluency first, won't I build bad habits? That's a fair concern, and I hear it a lot. The truth is, yes, you might build a few habits that aren't grammatically perfect. But that's okay. Language is flexible, and habits can be changed. What matters most is that you build the habit of expressing yourself. Once you can do that with ease, correcting small grammar issues becomes much easier because now you have a structure to work with. Let me give you a real-world example. One of my students, Diego from Brazil, used to speak very fluently. He was fearless in conversations. He'd talk about his hobbies, ask questions, make jokes. His grammar was sometimes off, especially with past tense verbs. For example, he'd say, "Yesterday I go to the supermarket." But guess what? Everyone understood him. He was participating in class. He was learning new words. And eventually, once he was comfortable speaking, we started gently correcting his grammar. He began to say went instead of go, did instead of do, and so on. Fluency gave him the confidence to speak, and accuracy came. Through feedback and practice. On the flip side, I had a student named Maria from Italy. She was an expert in grammar. She had studied English in school for years. Her written work was perfect, but she was terrified of speaking. Every time she tried, she would pause and correct herself constantly. I have been, no, wait, I had gone. And in the end, she would apologize and stay silent. Her fear of being incorrect stopped her from using the language. And without use, the knowledge she had stayed locked inside her head. This brings us to a powerful insight. Language lives in use. It doesn't live in rules, or charts, or exams. It lives in conversations, stories, jokes, mistakes, laughter, and shared meaning. If you don't use the language, it slowly fades. That's why fluency is a foundation. It keeps the language alive and moving in your brain. Once it's moving, you can adjust the grammar, improve your accuracy, and polish your skills. Now, let's look at how fluency and accuracy work together, rather than compete. Imagine you're building a house. Fluency is the framework, the walls, the rooms, the shape. Accuracy is the decoration, the paint, the lights, the furniture. You can't decorate a house that doesn't exist. But once the structure is there, decorating becomes fun and meaningful. That's what we want in your English learning. A strong fluency base with growing accuracy on top. But wait, there's more. Because the truth is, fluency and accuracy don't have to be separate. You can work on both at the same time with different activities. For example, speaking practice. With friends, focus on fluency. Just talk. Don't worry about mistakes. Keep the conversation flowing. Writing exercises. Focus on accuracy. Take your time. Check grammar, edit, and improve. Listening to podcasts. Improve fluency and comprehension. Notice natural phrases and grammar patterns. Reading short stories or articles. Focus on grammar in context. Notice sentence structure and vocabulary. Shadowing exercises. Repeat what native speakers say. This improves both fluency rhythm, speed, and accuracy. Correct structures. It's not either or. It's about balance and knowing when to focus on what. Some days, go all in on fluency. Other days, slow down and polish your accuracy. Over time, the two will blend naturally. Now let's talk about something many learners don't realize. Accuracy improves faster when you're fluent. That's right. Once you feel free to speak and write, you'll start to notice your own mistakes. Your brain starts saying, wait, did I just say he go instead of he goes? You'll notice patterns. You'll want to fix things. And you'll have the confidence to ask questions, get feedback, and keep improving. In other words, fluency opens the door to self-correction, which is the key to mastering accuracy. Let's get real for a moment. Language learning is not linear. It's not like you master all the grammar and then suddenly become fluent. It's messy. It goes in circles. You'll improve, then plateau. You'll speak fluently one day and forget a basic word the next. That's normal. But if you keep using the language, even imperfectly, your skills will grow. Every mistake is a lesson. Every conversation is practice. Every moment of courage adds to your fluency and, eventually, your accuracy. I want to give you a challenge right now. For the next week, choose one activity every day that focuses on fluency. Here are some ideas. Record a 1-minute voice message talking about your day. Call a friend and have a 5-minute chat in English. No correcting yourself. Watch a video and summarize it out loud without stopping. Talk to yourself while cooking or walking. Describe what you're doing. Do a role play. Pretend you're ordering food, traveling, or asking for help. The rule is, don't stop. Don't correct, just flow. Then, once the week is over, review your recordings or thoughts. Pick one small grammar point to work on. Maybe it's verb tenses, maybe it's articles. Maybe it's subject-verb agreement. Focus on that next week, while keeping your fluency practice going. This method builds both skills together, and it's incredibly powerful. And please, be patient with yourself. Fluency takes time, accuracy takes time, and comparing yourself to native speakers or other learners doesn't help. You are on your own journey. You are growing every day you use English. So celebrate your progress. Celebrate your small wins. And remember, a fluent speaker who makes grammar mistakes will always go further than a silent learner with perfect grammar. As we wrap up this segment, let's return to our original question. Which comes first, fluency or accuracy? For most learners, fluency should lead and accuracy should follow. Build the courage to speak, write, and communicate, even if it's messy. Then gently improve your accuracy through feedback, reading, writing, and focused practice. Over time, the two will blend, and you'll become not just a fluent speaker, but a clear, confident, and expressive one. Asterisk, asterisk. And here we are, dear listeners, at the end of our grammar journey together. If you've stayed with me through all these segments, give yourself a big round of applause. You've not only explored the role of grammar in English learning, but you've also taken a powerful step toward becoming a more confident and fluent speaker. So let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've learned. We began by challenging a common fear, the obsession with speaking perfect English. We broke the myth that grammar must come before everything else and embraced the idea that communication is the heart of language. We talked about how grammar, when used with purpose, supports your clarity, builds your confidence, and helps you express exactly what you mean. But we also learned that it shouldn't be a wall that stops you from speaking. It should be a bridge that helps you go farther. Then we looked at fluency and accuracy, two sides of the same coin. We discovered that fluency gives you the freedom to express, while accuracy adds polish and precision. And most importantly, we saw how the two can grow together. Fluency leads the way, and accuracy catches up as you use the language more naturally. And of course, we laughed together over some silly grammar mistakes, because let's be honest, learning is more fun when we don't take ourselves too seriously. Every grammar fail is just proof that you're trying, and every effort you make, even with mistakes, moves you forward. So where do you go from here? You keep going. You keep speaking, writing, listening, laughing, and learning. You keep making mistakes and learning from them. You keep trusting yourself. Because your English, your beautiful, growing, expressive English, is not about being perfect. It's about being you. It's about connecting with others, sharing your ideas, and having the confidence to speak your truth one word at a time. Thank you for joining me, Natasha, on this grammar adventure. I hope you walk away from this episode with a lighter heart, a stronger mindset, and a deeper belief in your ability to use English proudly, grammar quirks and all. Remember, grammar isn't everything, but it does matter, and now you know exactly how to use it wisely. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and as always, keep speaking smart English. Bye for now.